I don't think so. Maybe Magnus will start pushing the a pawn now. I don't know what he's going to do. a6 would be my guess, but yeah, h6 or castle, it's also quite a possibility.
Yeah, so if you push the pawn here, the downside is that you're weakening the square, right? The b5 square. And if you push the pawn there, it allows white to, I guess, take more space on the queen side, like we've seen, like Fide even do, I think, against Prague. The c3, b4 plan.
Yeah, so yeah, those two moves have pluses and minuses. So, and also, this might come as a surprise for Magnus. See how he's already thinking
in the opening phase. Like usually he's just blazing out his moves.
Yeah, it's interesting. So if you play h6, it's just a little bit too slow, right? You know, maybe c3 happens, and then, well, I mean, still, it's not too late to push the a pawn, right? And then like move your bishop back in case of d4. Bishop moves back somewhere. And there's like some famous, there's a famous kind of like trick here, right? When there's this trade.
You can just take it with the king.
With the king usually, right? Because if you lose this pawn, but there's rook f8, and then you try to get this pawn back if you can. Although in this position with h6, it doesn't work, right?
Because bishop g6.
Yeah.
Or you could have taken on e4 immediately.
Well, Magnus does actually play a5, and we have bishop e3 on the board. Okay, so big question for black. Do they trade or do they allow white to trade?
Yeah, both are totally playable. I think it's depending on what Magnus' strategy is. Like you can play bishop g4 here, but bishop g4 there's knight bd2. But if you already put the bishop on e3, I think we can safely just castle right now without afraid of.
That would be my intuition, right? Like that this structure would be rather pleasant for black, but there could be just an immediate problem with this move. It's maybe just tactical. Right, because then we start getting this e5 pawn hit.
Yeah, but there's bishop g4 as well.
Bishop g4, but then you get these triple pawns.
You want to take that.
I want to take, It's not that I'm going to win your pawn, but it's more like if you protect it, right, in some way, that this happens and then you get triple pawns. It's very ugly. So that might be the problem, actually.
And Magnus took on e3?
Yeah, that's why he took, He took and castled. So far, Prague is playing faster than him. He's got over 25 minutes. And Magnus, he's taken his time a little bit.
Knight e7.
Yeah, that's a very, very typical move in these positions, right? So one of the ideas is to open up the square for the pawn. You might have ideas of d5 later. And I think that's probably the main idea of c6, right? But also, I guess you could also put your knight on g6, although I'm not so sure what it does on g6. Yeah, I think it's just going to might just stay here for a little bit.
Yeah, I think you can go knight g6 later after c6 and d5. Yeah, but
maybe c6, maybe then protect the pawn, right, and then have these ideas. All right, so white to move, and Prague is finally thinking a little bit here. So what are the typical ideas here for white? And you can try to get the queen
e1,
over.
Queen g3, yes, that too. And it's pretty much the attack along the f-file. So you just want to move your queen, or maybe queen also goes to e2. But I like the queen on g3 better.
And if we go knight h4 right away, and we open up the rook, are we possibly threatening any sacrifices here? Not yet, right?
Not yet, but this maybe allows bishop g4 now. And then queen e1, and I'm thinking what to do in this position, or maybe
knight h4 is interesting actually, because if they go knight g6, well, first of all, I would even think about taking it, because then the pawn structure changes, and then you get these doubled g pawns, and this pawn might be something that's actually a little bit easier to target, because your queen can come in, and you can try to attack that pawn immediately using that pin. So I'm not so sure that Magnus would want that structure to change. In that case, though, what can he do? I mean, he could play c6. Maybe c6, actually, because I don't think that rook takes f6 is a big threat just at this moment. Black is still pretty safe.
And he did it, yes. Knight h4 is on the board. Yeah.
Knight h4, and he did play c6, yeah. Okay.
So are we going to see some sacrifice right now?
Yeah, I doubt it. I doubt
doubt
it
it,
because
eh?
yeah, well, I don't think White's prepared enough to make Rook takes f6 work, and Black can always bring the king in front of the knight in front of the king. But what other kind of move can we expect here? Well, we can expect, I think, Queen f3 or Queen e1, right? Trying to get the queen to this square regardless.
Right, but those queen moves will allow d5 then, yeah?
Yeah, d5 is hard to stop. I mean, unless you want to go bishop b3. Do you want to like withdraw?
I think we
Your
can
bishop?
withdraw, yeah.
Maybe bishop b3, yeah?
Yeah, and then after d5 takes and possibly e4. But I don't like my pawn in the center like that, just...
So, the other question is maybe Magnus is just going to be playing bishop e6. Because it seems actually like quite a decent developing move, right? I don't see the downsides of it. Because if White trades, White has absolutely nothing. So maybe he just wants to play bishop e6 next. So for example, if you pull the bishop away, I mean, yeah, I agree that d5 is interesting. But I would probably be tempted by this very simple move.
He played queen e1, so he allows this.
Okay, so he goes queen e1. Makes sense. So now if d5 happens, are we going back immediately or are we taking first? I mean, I guess we think that taking first
and then bishop b3
is the idea. But, if you go bishop back immediately, there's actually a point to it because maybe if you take, maybe then I can sack and get my knight here.
Yep.
So, for example, bishop b3. And if you take, there's, at least we can try this line. It's somewhat more interesting than before because the knight is more active, right? It still might not work, but it's a better line than before. All right, and the other thing you can do, though, is you can capture back with knight takes e4. And then there's actually a lot of pressure on f7 because despite our kind of ugly doubled e-pawns, right, we got a lot of pressure here. And the bishop hasn't come out yet, right? Although it can come out, but maybe Black's pawns are kind of weaker than White's here. Maybe it'll be easier to attack,
Right.
after we trade. All right, so let's go back, and we're thinking about what Magnus will do after queen e1. So there's d5,
There's bishop
there's
e6.
bishop e6, and then there's other just kind of non-committal moves. I don't know, if you want to go king h8, get your king maybe a little bit safer, prepare for queen g3.
Well, that's interesting. Yeah. Yeah. I totally like the options here. But I like Watt's position. I think as an Italian player, this is the sort of position that I would like to play.
Yeah, so let's say I try king h8 just to play the most non-committal move to see where you're going to go. You're going to go here. And what could be my next move? I mean, is this the only active counterplay that I have? Or is there something else? I mean, we don't really want to be going all passive like that, right? This is not the way these positions are played. I mean, it feels, maybe you could do it, but it feels
A bit
rather
wrong, yeah.
passive, yeah? It's solid, you're kind of guarding against everything, and you can probably still play for d5 later, but I don't know, I'd be surprised if Magnus plays it like that. So you're thinking d5, maybe the more direct.
Yeah, maybe d5 is a more
d5,
direct.
okay, so if I go bishop b3, then what?
And maybe now I can exchange the knight by playing knight g6. Or even bishop e6 also looks natural.
Yes. Well, knight g6, maybe I just trade, take, I go queen here, and I hit the e5 pawn. That's the question, right? Because my question is always should I trade or should I come in with a knight?
Right.
They both look kind of tempting, but I think trading and just going maybe queen f3 is not a bad idea.
Yeah, queen g3 and rook e8.
Sorry, queen g3 and rook e8, yeah. And knight f3. Can we try to hit this pawn with knight g5?
Yeah, that's possible. And then queen
There's
d6.
some initiative, right, for White in this position.
Yeah.
I mean, it definitely seems easier for White to play.
Or there's a direct
Yeah.
attack, instead of knight f3, I think you can take on d5, c d5 and e4. And then d e4 and queen g6.
Interesting. I still have bishop e6 there, so I can sort of hold on. But let's take a look. It's a very good point. So takes. You're trying to open up this immediately, right? So let's
It
say
doesn't work,
I
yeah?
take.
Or even I can
Well,
take
if I
now.
take, if I take, you can take with the knight though.
Yeah, yeah.
You can take with the knight because in this line, I think
Yeah, it's a bit dubious.
black is solid with that development, but this is well, the funny thing is I can still go here, right? Because I mean it's not like I'm that scared now. My pawns are all going to be together, so black is pretty solid. Okay, did Magnus just make a move? He
D5,
did. He
yeah.
went for D5. Okay, good intuition on that one. So he
And then
went
queen
D5.
D6.
The bishop went back to B3. And Magnus, of course, did not capture there, letting the knight in. He played queen D6, defending this pawn. Okay. Well, that makes sense in some way, right? Although I don't know how well the queen stands there. You know, there could be some issues one day from this knight.
Yeah, but I think you have no choice, yeah, because the knight on e7 has to guard the f5, and you have to protect now the knight on f6, otherwise there's an exchange sack there. So queen d6, I think it's kind of forced.
So what if we go queen G3? And on knight G6, do we now have maybe even knight F5? Is that like a more attractive move? Let's try that. I mean, queen G3 is going to get played, I think, by Prague. I don't see why he wouldn't. And now on knight H5, we again have that big choice. So this one, I mean, it still looks attractive to me, actually. I don't know. Rook takes, pawn takes, again, like every single white move seems possible, right? You can sort of go for the tempo, or you can go,
I think take with the rook, yeah.
you know, for
and then
for the
doubling
F
the
file.
rook, yeah.
Yeah, or you can go for this one. And again, kind of try to make the case that this pawn on G6 is a little bit weak. I wonder if we even have ideas of maybe just like playing rook F3 or rook F1 in these positions. But I think, you know what, I think the main idea is the knight coming in.
Yeah, and then the
that's
queen
actually
h4.
dangerous, yeah. Yeah. If we take, pawn takes, and the knight comes in, first of all, hitting that pawn, and then coming there. Yeah, there's a lot of pressure on black's position, right?
Yep, yeah. Yeah, wow. So, I mean, out of the opening now, Pragnananda is having a better position. And he has many options here to how to continue this one.
Yeah, because I mean, once the knight gets there and the queen comes in, then you're threatening the big sacrifice on F6 and queen H7. Right, so I feel that Magnus is definitely under some pressure, right? Even though he's very experienced in these kinds of positions, it does look like Prague is setting up an initiative here.
Yeah, totally, yeah. No, I really like this position. It's a dream position. I don't know why Magnus allowed this bishop takes e3 ladder too quickly, because we would like to hold it as much as we can.
Yeah, I mean, also, I mean, okay, well, D5 was also a big question, right? Like, this is a bit of a committal move because it actually weakens that pawn. It gives you sort of a target on this diagonal, right? So I think here, well, I don't know. This move was seeming like quite normal to me. And I can't really imagine us being worse here. Like, I see maybe there's a line like this, but I mean, in this structure, it just feels, I don't know, should be harmless, right? By all logic. I don't know, it's symmetric structure. Why should it be bad for black? So his move D5 is, can be, you know, seen as like maybe slightly more dangerous kind of option than some of the other ones that he had. And queen D6. Okay, so we're waiting for Prague to find this move.
And he did, yeah, he played it.
Okay, yep, it's on the board, very natural. Lining up the queen with the king, and this rook is also staring at the knight, so the queen really has to stay there protecting it.
Yeah. Wow. Do you think this could be an upset? Or maybe it's too early to...
Yeah, it's still early. It's still early to say. Okay, how about we try king h8? Can we try king h8 getting
king
off
h8.
the file? Okay, so let's try this move. And, I mean, wow. Like, it seems like a normal move, but white's initiative is just growing. Look at that. We're, again, coming into knight g5. I mean, and, like, knight e5 is also hanging. Yeah, that's, you know, this d5 move was quite committal.
Yeah.
Like, because imagine he takes, right? I mean, now I think I can just play knight takes e5, and that might be game over.
Yeah. And also you have this knight g6 idea. How do you stop that, right?
Yeah. So Oh, you mean like, okay, you mean like once I take.
Yeah, once you take.
Once I take.
The other knight, because it's a discovery.
Ah, yeah, that's what you were
Yeah.
talking about. Yeah, this one. Okay, you want to win the queen. Okay, so Magnus has to find a move here. How is he going to neutralize these pieces coming to the king side, right? It's not the position you want to find yourself in.
No, this is
Yeah.
this is so hard to defend. And yeah, Magnus, we could say on the camera, he's just trying to be very focused because only white can play all he wants here.
Okay, I have another idea for black. I mean, like, is there any chance at all for me to try to put a pawn in f6 to try to just guard this pawn and that square? Like, for that, I would need to move this knight.
You want to move it to h5?
Well, h5, you're going here.
And g6?
And then, I don't know. That
Or
looks,
g4 maybe.
yeah, that looks so scary.
Yeah.
I wouldn't really want to play g6. But, I mean, okay, the knight d7 looks extremely ugly, but maybe if I can get the knight here, maybe I can make this work. All right, I mean, I know you have also d4 idea. That's really annoying. Actually, like here's the problem with this move is that you're going to change plans, you know, because now you're going to be like, oh, the queen's unprotected. And now I'm going to, instead of going for this idea, right, you're going to just start playing in the center. You're going to pressure me everywhere.
Yeah. And maybe you can put the queen. No, you have to keep hanging to the pawn, yeah? Because if the queen h6, then can I play queen h6?
Do you want to play queen h6 here? Well, I think this pawn is actually going to be kind of precious.
Yeah.
It's like triple pawns, but they're actually really powerful.
And knight f5 is coming, yeah. And the bishop and the rook, they're undeveloped.
Yeah, I mean, you have some tactic based on this overload on the queen, like, because you're actually protecting your knight here, but it's still, like, looking very dubious, right? Like, rook f4, you're almost about to lose your knight. Maybe you
have to
try
play
something
knight.
like that. I take, you take, then I take another pawn. So now I'm basically up a pawn. Magnus is twirling the pawn. Yeah. Is that the pawn? He must only have a pawn in his hand, right? Because no, there might be some other piece, but it's probably...
There's no pawn. It's a bishop.
It's a bishop, okay, because they traded those bishops.
Yep.
Yeah. Wow. No, I mean, I think he feels how unpleasant this is, and I really feel like these last two moves were kind of the culprit, like the big one, because we weren't really sure yet about this position, right? But now he gave his opponent something to really latch on to, like that e-pawn, you know, and he knows that because he tried to defend it, but it's like the pawn is still a problem. Like, and these ideas, like the queen is not amazing on that square because of that pin.
Yeah, or knight f3 is there,
Yeah.
knight f5. Yeah, too many good moves. Yeah, I think Magnus might be underestimating his position before. Like he thought that everything is still like quite equalish and symmetrical and so on. And
Let's try this move, h6. How about that? Because what did he just do? Oh, he
Knight
put his knight on
h5.
h5. Okay, he put his knight on h5. And what's going to happen after queen up? Maybe he's just trying to remove the queen from this diagonal.
And do you think like after queen g5, then knight back to f6?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, you're basically saying, like, is he going to defend it like that or move back? Because he doesn't have any other choices, right?
Yeah, he doesn't.
So I think he's probably going to move back because this feels a little shaky, but I mean, maybe you can go g6, f6, right?
Yeah, so I was just thinking if you play g6 and then g4, then you can play f6 maybe, yeah?
And then pull the knight back. Okay, this is interesting. So maybe
No, in that case, you can just take on g4 with the bishop.
Yes. You mean like, yeah, well, white can't go all aggressive like that because f6,
Yep.
and then this pawn is going to hang, and black is completely fine.
Yeah, so after g6, knight f5? Or what?
Knight f5 threatens this knight, yeah? It's actually kind of interesting, but knight f5 is interesting, yeah?
And then you push it to f6 and have a better position?
Yeah, it's an interesting move. There's a lot of tactics, right? Like, for example, if f6...
no, you have to take first because the queen is hanging.
Oh, sorry, yeah. Magnus made a move. Oh, no, I think Prague made a move.
Queen g4.
Queen g5
Queen
is on the board.
g5.
Yeah, and now we're going to see how Magnus wants to defend this knight, whether it's just going back. And that makes sense, right? It makes sense because he got the queen off that square on g3, and he also is, like, stopping that. and then maybe he wants to just go h6.
Yeah, it does make sense. But he went for g6.
Oh, he went for g6.
Yeah, it's more natural to
Yes.
to play such a move.
Okay. So we were looking at this move. Yeah, you're attacking the queen, so we have to make some sort of a trade.
So you take it with the bishop or the knight?
Well, maybe with the knight.
And your follow-up should be f6, yeah?
Well, yeah, that was the idea. But if I go f6, queen h6, like how am I holding that pawn? Because there's this tactical idea of giving up the rook for the bishop and winning the knight, getting the 2 pieces for the rook and having a great position. So, okay.
Oh, and Prague also went for this
He
idea.
went for knight f5. Yeah, look at that. Yeah, very nice. Okay.
So I think you have to take with the bishop so that you can protect g6.
Ah, so keep the knight to have that pawn guarded, and then maybe you can play f6, or there's an interesting subtle move here, king g7.
Wow.
To try, basically you're holding that square, and then you want to play f6, and then you don't let the queen in. But then the knight is like is in some trouble, right? Like, but I guess you can still go back to f6 and then try h6. It's a little tricky, right? But let's try f6. Let's see if this is a problem, then we can try king g7. And if I go back, maybe even just bring back the knight.
Yeah.
Pressure that pawn. Okay, let's look at that. Queen
That
eight.
makes sense.
Yeah, just go here. How do you support that pawn?
e4. You can do e4 now.
e4, you want to try to use this diagonal, yeah? All right, at some point I can also play
Like
g5.
g4?
Yeah, okay, you're going here. So, by the way, there's also some sort of tricky move like that, using
Right.
the pin.
Wow,
But
that's
then,
interesting.
yeah, if you go there, I can take there, and I'm also hitting your queen. So, okay, let's try e4 first. Okay, we're seeing some changes on the
Yeah,
board.
bishop
Magnus played
f5.
bishop takes. Yeah, he kept the knight. All right. So I think, he took his time, but he is navigating, I think, this in a good way. Right? It's quite, it's not as bad as some of the lines that we looked at for black. Right?
Right.
So his knight h5 move, followed by g6, was quite clever.
Yeah, I mean, you only have 2 options after knight h5, right? Either to play g6 or knight f6, but g6 is just more human-like move and more natural.
So what do we think is going to happen in this position? You think, like, this is the question for Magnus, yeah, f6 or king g7? Okay, he's about to reach for something. He's about to reach for the king.
King,
Yeah.
yes.
Look at him, like, playing all the accurate moves, yeah? King G7. Basically, he's not afraid of the pawn pushing because he's got 3 attackers on it. And white, if white goes with G4, I think that gives black a lot of options. Well, the main one is knight f6, I guess. You can throw in h6 if you want as well. Like, you could put that move on the board, bring back the queen,
Also, you can force queen f6, yeah?
even like this.
Oh, but queen f6.
A
Yeah, queen
third
f6,
option, trading the
h4.
queens.
But there's h4.
No,
maybe.
you know why you don't want it? Because I'm going to take.
And then
Knight
g5.
takes maybe g5
Yeah,
and then
and
push
then
in the
f6,
pawns. Yeah.
right.
So I think either h6 or
Oh,
knight f6 both work. But I mean, you can even start with knight f6 because you can always play that later. So g4 is not that dangerous. So Prague needs to come up with something else here. Meanwhile, what is black's idea? I mean, is the idea just to pull back the knight, or are we starting to maybe have some eventual ideas of taking the pawn? I don't know, rook takes, and then do we have some kind of attack on your queen? Maybe not yet, right? But yeah, maybe not yet.
Well, if you don't really do anything, I like to just clarify the situation by playing queen f6, attacking both your queen and the pawn. Yeah.
That's not a bad idea at all, right? Because, I mean, this bishop is kind of shut out of the game
Yeah.
now. Actually, white needs to figure out a way to get this bishop into the game, I think.
Maybe it's time to play e4.
But e4 also maybe gives us the f4 square in some cases.
That's true.
But e4, yeah, I mean, that's, like, I feel like if white's initiative is not enough, the bishop is definitely the culprit, right? Yeah, he's a little bit closed up here. Well, let's try e4. The problem is e4 doesn't really make a threat of any
Yeah,
kind.
it doesn't. It doesn't.
You know, and it does give black a lot of options. So at some point, well, yeah, at some point it's going to be hard to attack that knight because it'll always be able to have that square. I kind of wonder if we can even kind of go for f6 and d4 and play like a dark square strategy.
Interesting. Yeah, but that bishop is not really a good bishop right now. There could be a strategy, but why giving that bishop something to shoot on?
Well, I don't know. It's interesting. So let's try it. Like f6, let's say you go back. Can I just play d4? Yeah, I mean, it does open up your bishop, right? And doesn't really give me any particular benefits.
Yeah, and also giving up the c4 square maybe for the knight.
Knight, yeah, I agree. So probably pushing is like premature. Yeah, it's not a great idea. Opens up your pieces too much. Okay, so I would just have to figure out something else here. So does black want h6 or does black want f6? Because I can also just, how about I just play like knight f6? Doesn't that look really solid?
Yeah, looking good. Okay, does white have time to double up the rook? Or I don't think so. There's h6 and g5 maybe, yeah?
Well, you can try. I think you can try it, like rook f2.
Rook f2, h6.
H6, queen g3. The thing is, g5 allows me this stuff, right? Or g5 also allows me some knight f3s maybe.
And now maybe knight h5.
You can go back, right? Yeah. And you could go kind of back and forth, yeah? Well, what can we say? It's very double-edged.
It is, yeah.
It's not as bad. It's not, the way Magnus played it, it's definitely not as bad for him as we were thinking, right? I think he's doing a good job of trying to neutralize White's initiative. I mean, yeah.
Yeah, but just get back a second because I thought this is just going to be very much dominating. So this knight f5 idea is turns out to be a little bit of an accuracy.
Yeah.
So what could White have done better here?
Okay, well, there's a computer line that I think is like very hard to understand, right? Like this, going back with the knight to attack the pawn, and then just stepping back. Now, understanding why this is somehow superior, like, no, it's just not obvious. That's why I didn't even mention it, because it was like,
There's no,
no, it's not very human-like. There's no particular reason why going backwards.
Right.
And like, I mean, of course, we can try to understand like why White should have stayed in this position. But I mean, yeah, I think that what Prague did was like the very natural reaction, right? Basically, he took this knight on the side of the board, and you know, the knight is not trying to go backwards; it's trying to go forwards, right? So, and that's what he did, right? So he brought the knight here, and even when there's a trade, he seems to get like a very powerful pawn that gives him a space advantage. Like what he did is very natural, right? But at the same time, mathematically, it does not appear to be the strongest option.
Right. Yes. Well, it's very hard to foresee this type of position that turns out even with the king moves to g7, it doesn't weaken black's position. It actually strengthened the position. And yeah, I mean, if I saw this position beforehand, I would still say that White is better. Yeah.
Right. No, of course, because you feel that White has the initiative with a pawn like that. On black side of the board, White's the only one with a pawn on the opponent's side of the board. You have like the half-open f-file. You have the active-looking queen. Yeah, I mean, I think all the signs are in place that White has an initiative here. But, you know, Magnus is quite subtle about neutralizing it, right? I mean, it's actually been quite impressive, the last few moves, because, you know, from a human point of view, it was looking like he was, you know, going to be
in trouble.
Yeah, in some trouble, defending, and he's, like, navigating it, like, smoothly past the turbulent waters. So, yeah, I feel like the last few moves have been definitely quite masterful by him.
Yeah. So let's also see what Pragnananda can be doing here. He's just basically passing the turn, king h1.
King h1, okay. Well, that's not a move that's going to worry Magnus too much, king h1. I know Magnus is going to have to show us what his idea is. And by the way, it does look here like your idea, queen f6, is actually very well timed. Maybe you should just force the queen trade.
And can the queen avoid it?
I don't think so, because
Just
that
knight-
knight f5, right?
Yeah, because I was thinking in this position,
E4.
you should just double the rook so that queen f6 cannot be done.
Why
Because,
can't it be done?
I can just play queen g4, and then if you take on f5, then I can double my rook, and it's very hard for
Okay.
you to navigate
Let's
it.
look at your point. So you wanted to basically do this move, right? And you're saying that that would have stopped this particular idea.
Yeah, and then
Yeah,
just
because now we can take.
no, we can just move back.
Oh, sorry, we move back to where? G4? Yeah, G4
Yep.
is the only square. And then.
Knight takes and then
there
rook
might be
f1.
knight h6. You thought
Oh,
this
clever.
was pinned.
Or
even
e3.
knight e3, yeah.
Yeah. So
Because
it doesn't
here-
really stop either.
Yeah, we were preparing to win the knight like that.
Yeah. But knight
Looks
e3, of
powerful.
course.
But is it knight e3? Because knight e3, there's maybe even a queen h3 or even queen e2.
But queen g5, yeah?
Yeah. There's nothing there, yeah? Wait, so knight e3. I don't have any tricks. I don't have any tricks, yeah, because on queen there, you take my rook. So it seems like you could do this move as well. Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
So a rook f2 still would have allowed queen f6. Yeah, it was a hard idea to stop. And actually, let's see if Magnus is going to find it. I think he will, because it's one of the most forcing options he has, and it's quite safe, right? So the point of this move is that you're trying to get the queen trade. You're trying to go into an end game that, obviously, then you don't really have much to worry about in the end game. It's very pleasant. And if the queen goes back, you're finally free to take the pawn. Because now the queen protects the knight, so there's no rook f5. And when this happens,
There's queen
then,
h4.
yeah, there's there's a lot, right? There's again,
There's again knight
all
e3,
these
knight
ideas,
h6,
and then there's
uh-huh.
queen h4, right? So there's one way of saving the knight, but there's really a lot, right? There's like this a fork, and when you take my queen, I take your queen, and basically black is up a pawn here.
Yep.
So queen f6 is going to be a very logical way for him to play, and I think it'll be a little bit unpleasant for Prague.
Yeah, and I think Magnus just
He just
doing
played it. Yeah. Okay. Definitely, so far, I feel like we're seeing a master class.
Yeah.
Yeah, at neutralizing the initiative, that was really good. And, because this bishop is now closed up by the pawn, right? So things have taken a bit of a turn in this game as Magnus kind of, first he neutralizes the initiative, and, we'll see if he has anything in this end game. So I think white has to trade. Also kind of shows that this move is not the most relevant, right? Because
Yeah.
you moved your king away from the center. Now we're in the end game.
Yeah, I'm a bit surprised of that move actually. Yeah, what could Pragnanana think about that move? Because
Yeah.
I think all the pressure has to be around the f file, and playing king h1 in such a critical position, I would say it's a little bit uncharacteristic. So
But do you think he just missed this idea? I mean, you can miss an idea
could
like
be,
that
yeah.
because black has a lot of ideas, right? It's like all of these moves are potential ideas. So queen f6, it's possible to miss, but at the same time, it's also a very logical move for black that you can consider, right?
Yeah, so just a reminder, the players are playing the first section of the rapid tiebreak. It's 25 minutes plus 10 seconds. And after 2 games, if the match is still tight, and they will keep continuing to the next rapid tiebreak, that is
Yeah.
10 minutes plus 10 seconds. So how many games do you think will they be playing today?
Oh, I don't know. It depends on how Magnus does in this one. I mean, if he manages to win,
okay.
right, it could be a short match. But, it's funny because there's an absolutely fascinating position on the board between Abbasov and Caruana. But I feel like we might get killed if we switch to that game. So we're not going to do that. But it does look like a very interesting game. Okay, we got a queen trade on the board. And let's take a look at this endgame. So they've got 10 minutes for this endgame. It's basically like the next time control is the 10-minute portion.
The
So
10-minute
they're,
portion,
now
yeah.
they're there, but they're not starting from the opening, already from the endgame. So this pawn is under attack. You can't keep it, right? So your space is getting traded. And actually, yeah, black is super comfortable after pawn takes. Takes with the H pawn, and the only thing I can see that could be wrong with that is like, could this pawn get hit with a knight? But it's not really, because we always have knight d7 in the worst case, right? Like if you move here, I mean, we A, have that move, but B, if we didn't want to change anything, we have that move, and that is also perfectly pleasant, right? So, yeah, Prague makes the trade, and now we expect Magnus to capture it with the H pawn
Yes,
towards the
and hit
center. Yeah. So now we're going to get to see endgame technique in action.
Wow, yeah, I think it's going to be very instructive now. I mean, so far, all of Magnus's endgames, and the ones that he won, have been quite instructive, yeah?
Well, I have to say, so here are Black's advantages in this position. Black's number one advantage is space. So these center pawns against these guys. Also, he even managed to get a little bit of space by capturing with the H pawn to the G file. His king is actually a little bit more active than White's. And also this bishop is closed up. So, you know, that's a number of advantages. It doesn't, I mean, White doesn't really have any weaknesses. That's the plus side of White's position. White has this like rook on the semi-open file. But I would say that it's quite unpleasant to play as White.
Yeah, I think the major reason why Black is better here is just because of the bishop. Imagine if that bishop is replaced by the knight on c3. Well, Black would still be slightly better, but it's not going to be very much because then the knight can reroute. In this type of position, this is almost like a closed position, and the bishop is not doing anything over there.
Oh, I think we have e4 on the board.
Yeah,
I think it's a good idea. You know, he's trying to open up the bishop.
Yeah, but then you have like a
weak pawn on e4.
A weak pawn on e4 until the end. So yeah, there's some. Yeah, Pragnanda has to force some matters because otherwise the bishop cannot be closed up permanently like that.
And Magnus took on e4, so he actually made that decision really fast. He had other moves, but I guess he was just tempted by the idea of this pawn being weak.
And then some rook d8.
I mean, in this position, okay, at some theoretical level, there's a knight c4 idea. Could be useful somewhere. And I would say, okay, it's good for Prague that he managed to open up the bishop because there is more pressure on f7. So now, what kind of move could we expect from Black?
Rook a d8.
Rook a d8 is the obvious one. Also, knight d7 to try to go to c5 is kind of attractive. Can we try? Okay, so either we're attacking their knight or we're trying to reroute this knight off of the f file. So let's try that. Or am I going to run into some sort of knight c4 where you try not to let me move?
No, knight c4 is fine. I think you can just play f6, right? And then you still have this knight c5 idea.
Good point. Yeah. So I think knight c4, I have a few different moves, but your f6 makes sense. And protecting the pawn and getting ready to go knight c5, yeah? Seems logical. All right, so I think that's another big decision for Magnus. So knight d7 is one move. But the thing is, if he goes here, okay, he's about to move something.
And he has to because he has 8 minutes on the clock and they have to start playing faster.
All right, rook d8, I was a little bit worried about that.
Yeah, the pawns, yeah, a5 and
yeah,
e5.
I was a little bit worried, but you know, I mean, now it starts just to get kind of forcing, right? Like knight takes, maybe there's knight d2 or
Knight
no,
d2,
then there's rook f7,
yeah.
Right? So.
I don't think so. Is it? Because then.
Oh, you're saying like maybe I can still take here, like, but then I take with the bishop,
You
right?
take with the bishop.
And then it's still a mess.
Here.
As somehow I'm holding my pieces here.
Yeah.
So I don't know if Magnus is going to want to go for rook d8 though. It's like it's a little bit like the structure. It gives the potential for the structure to change like right away, right? Because like the knight comes in, it starts to hit both pawns. They're not protected. Then you're kind of like impelled into this. I mean, maybe this potential threat of that is really annoying. You know what I think we can do? Could we go f5 here? What do you think about that?
Why not f6? You're hitting
Maybe
that
f6 as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, it's possible.
But f6 maybe that one, yeah, and yeah, stopping knight d2, and rook e1 is coming.
Yeah, and if we play f5, you might still want to go knight c4, I think. Yeah. So you know, White is kind of holding on in these positions.
But he played rook a d8.
He played rook a d8. Okay.
Just human move.
yeah. Attacking the knight was too attractive. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So we're gonna see if Prague plays knight c4, or if he prefers like somehow defending this knight and keeping the knight protecting the pawn.
I don't think defending is an option for Prague here. He has to play knight c4.
Do you think he's going to go active?
Yeah, because if he wastes another move, like what he did with king h1, it's going to be backfired quickly.
Okay, so you're thinking we're going to see this.
Yeah, we're going to see knight c4.
And then does Magnus have options, or taking this pawn is really the big one? I feel like taking the pawn is the whole point, isn't it? It's the whole purpose here. And so now Prague has some choices, but like if this holds together, this line,
maybe you
right?
can just stop f7 threat by playing something like knight f5 maybe.
Yeah, you do have that move. You do have that. It's kind of an active move. It's too bad that, you know, like for example, instead of like a knight here, we don't have a bishop. Would be nice, right? Because then we could set up these beautiful checkmates. But at the moment, actually, this isn't really a threat. But it's an idea. It's an idea. It's an idea. You can sort of try to get that fork. All right. Well, we got some moves on the board.
Oh, he did rook f2.
He did rook f2. Okay. Well, that's not necessarily a bad move. It's just a different move.
Yeah.
Okay, so he goes rook f2, and that does mean, though, what it means is that this knight is not moving, but it also means that he's trying to play this. That's the point. So there is some activity involved in playing this move. He wants to attack the knight and then this pawn. So Magnus has to prepare for that. What's he going to do? He can't really... Can he move this knight? But if he moves it, then there's no pressure on the pawn.
Yeah, he can move it to g4, just not to have any attack on the f file. And then once the rook goes to e2, then maybe he can even double up on the d file. Because whenever you play this h3, you know, I can always play my knight to f6 and h5 and have this f4 and g3 idea.
Yeah, that's your idea. Okay,
So,
but the problem is, so like if I go here, if I go knight, rook e, so which move do you want to play? Like rook somewhere? But the thing is, it's hard to double. It's kind of hard to double, right? Maybe rook d4?
Rook d4, yeah, let's do it.
For rook d4, I have knight f3.
So maybe rook d7?
But rook d7, you're going to really find this move, I think, knight c4 a little bit annoying. Or are you just going to double up and try to mate me on the d file?
I like to try.
You would like to try these attacks, yeah?
But maybe you have to play h3 at the end anyway.
Yeah, I mean, okay, like let's say you go here, I probably play h3. You go, okay, we're seeing some action, and Magnus has chosen a move. So he has gone for rook d4. Okay. Rook here, and wow, so knight g8.
And we have a result on the game between Abasov versus Caruana.
Looks like black won.
Black won, yes, and it was a very dominating attack.
It looks beautiful. It looks so beautiful. I'm so sad that we never got to see it because I mean, like from the purely chess point of view, that game looks like very exciting. But you know, we know that the match for first place is what everyone is interested in seeing. So we don't want to miss any details in this game. So yeah, I think we got to stick with it. But we can admire Fabi's accomplishment later. Yeah. So he brought his knight back to g8 to guard the knight on f6. So this is kind of interesting, right? It's a little bit passive. He's tied down here, but
it's blockading the
I
attack.
kind of wonder, like, what does he even want? Like, because he can't move anything, right? As black, so like how's he moving any pieces here?
Oh well, I think you just want to double the rook, and at some point you play b5. Try to undermine c4, but also attacking the fourth rank.
This is coming, you think?
Yeah, that's coming, and b5 is also coming. I think that's those are two main ideas by black.
All right, so white played c3, kicking the rook back, and then white went rook e2 to free the knight to go to c4.
And now Magnus is thinking.
He's down to 5 minutes. Okay, so we're getting to like the blitz portion, you know, because it starts out so slow. With 25 minutes, you feel like you're watching almost a classic game, right? Just a classical game, a little bit more accelerated, right? But when you get to 5 minutes, at some point you remember it's like actually it's blitz. So you have to make some adjustments, you know, although you are getting the 10-second increment.
Right. So now how does black prepare for this knight c4?
How does black prepare for this move, which is going to hit 2 pawns? He chose something?
He played some rook
Yeah, and it
move.
wasn't b5.
Oh,
which-
rook e7.
Yeah, he went for rook e7.
So what's his idea? Like after knight c4 attacking a5, what are you going to do about it?
Well, I mean,
Not rook
I
a8,
hope it's
right?
not rook a8. I hope he has some better plans.
Or
than
maybe
that.
it is, and then b5 is coming. I know, hard to believe.
Yeah,
but,
no, I mean, I'm a little surprised how this is going. I mean, I feel like, okay, Prague has kept everything together, and like for some reason, these pieces are still pretty passive, so nothing terrible has happened to white. I guess Magnus is really putting all his hopes on like the long-term weakness of the e4 pawn, but for the moment, it doesn't look like. Look at his pieces even, right? Like nobody's making any threats. So probably Prague's position is under less pressure than it was when we first entered this endgame.
Right. Wow. Okay. So
Knight c4,
Knight c4.
That's what the move we're definitely expecting by Prague. What could he not like? Is there some sort of b5, knight a5? I mean, like rook c7 to try to trap the knight after rook a8? That looks like such a crazy line.
that is, yeah.
Could Magnus really be planning b5? Knight here, and now the next pawn is under attack. Now you got to guard it, and now you want to win the knight. I mean, it seems surprising because there's so many moves. There's even bishop c2 and b4.
Before.
Like I don't really see why would Magnus go for this? You know what I mean? Like from what he had. So I don't know. I'm a little surprised, by how Magnus has handled this.
Yeah, but maybe also. Oh, he didn't play knight c4.
All right,
What did
knight
he do?
c4 was not played. Okay.
Bishop c2.
Bishop c2. Well, that gives us a chance to at least play b5, right? And I think that Magnus should probably take his chance to play that pawn move, but he's reaching for something else. Knight d7. Okay. Makes sense, actually, as well. And now on knight c4, how's he handling the attack on the pawn? b6 looks weird. So it actually might be, you know what, it might be rook 8 and then b5. Because I think you have to play these moves at some point. Like you can't just let the knight stay on c4 forever. So like if this move happens, okay, I think he finally put the knight there.
Yeah, and rook a8.
Rook a8, yeah. You just now this makes sense. Okay, he wants to play b5 to challenge that knight. Okay, it's like a balanced position. Perhaps this knight will finally come out to f6 from g8. All right, both players under 5 minutes. Yeah, we're getting to the exciting portion of this game. So far, we've had a lot of maneuvering. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you have to maneuver with these knights. Yeah, trying to put them onto the best square. So far, knight g8 is not doing the job, but it will come. It will come to f6 and e4. E4 will always be
Yeah, another
the
important
target.
point is like when b5 happens, we're going to have knight d6. So we do have like some sort of active move plans, like hitting both pawns. So I'm not sure. I don't think Magnus can play this move just yet. Because after trade, knight comes in, we're hitting 2 pawns, right?
No, you're hitting just the b5
Oh, I'm
because
sorry.
f7 is...
Yeah. You know what? I was used to the rook being here. I was like, oh, we have this attack 3 times. No, the rook is here. You're right. So actually b5 is a possibility already.
Yeah, but what after like take 6, like what you said, knight d6, how to protect this pawn?
How to protect the b pawn? I mean,
You just play
should we
rook
just keep-
b8 or b4?
Or b4. Yeah, like, okay, so as an example, let's like pass the turn for white. Let's play this move. b5, pawn takes, and to answer the question, how do we guard this pawn?
I think if you play b4, then I can just play bishop b3 back, right?
Yes. I mean,
Or takes first and then bishop b3.
yeah, something like that, and come back, attack this pawn, and...
And that
Well,
is
I
a
think-
very...
You think so? Yeah. because if
Yeah,
I
it's going to
play
be a very
f6
strong bishop.
Yeah, it's a little passive. Like overall, like
Yeah.
playing like this is just passive with this knight. Yeah. So
Prague did something.
okay, he played
G4.
g4. Okay.
Wow.
Wow, that move is very committal.
It is, yeah.
You know, I mean, pawns don't move backwards. Once you committed here, like the obvious square that becomes weak is f4. Magnus might be very happy to see that move because now if the knight comes out, he attacks the pawn. And obviously, if the pawn moves forward, he gets to go to that outpost. So Prague must be planning on knight here. He must be planning to defend this pawn in some other way.
H3.
H3, right? But then he kind of, okay, Magnus did something different.
F6.
Oh, wow. He really played F6, huh?
Oh, I think I know. You just want to reroute your knight to G6 and F4. So knight F8, knight G6, and knight F4.
But what is this knight going to do? I was hoping that he would finally do something for that knight. Like, this knight was not my... I mean, it's a nice square, for sure. Sorry, but... oh, rook G2 is on the board. Rook G2 is played by Prague, and is he trying to prepare G5?
Oh, yeah, that's true. Because you cannot play
Yeah.
G5 now, knight E3, and then F5.
Okay, this was quite strange
Yeah,
to me.
that's
I feel
strange.
like this knight is being mistreated. Locked up in the corner on G8 for a little bit too long. All right, so white wants to go G5, break up those pawns. I mean, I don't know if G5 is like a huge threat. Maybe he wants to go, but I mean, that seems to be what rook G2 is showing us, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right, so Magnus, now they're under 4 minutes.
Yeah, I don't know how this is going to be because this is still pretty much a 3-result game. And after G5, you're undermining
Yeah,
this E5.
so maybe my knight needs to come out and try to go to F7. If you go here, can I go to knight F7? Or am I just...
takes and then rook G1.
Yeah, and then I was going to like defend my pawn with knight H8 or something. Or... That looks pretty ugly. But, I mean, was this kind of holding... I mean, the knight was on G8. It's kind of funny to put him on H8. But we might be, like, getting a little too passive, right, as these pawns.
And knight D6 coming. And
Yeah. So, yeah, unfortunately, you can't even do that because knight D6, knight F5 wins. Okay, well, there could be a better move than knight H8, maybe G5. Because if you go here, there's rook H8.
yeah, but
then-
you can just play knight E3, knight
yeah,
F5.
Yeah, weakening those squares, yeah? Okay.
Yeah, so he played, what did he play?
He did play knight H6.
Knight H6.
Yeah, knight H6 is on the board. And after G5, well, you know what? Perhaps he should take, and then maybe play knight F7. At least he gets a tempo like that. That's better than playing knight F7 right away. Yeah, it's definitely. It's basically like an extra tempo.
Yep.
So if G5, we take first, then we go knight F7.
And then rook's going to go back to
G3.
G3
and
or
then
G2.
how do we get ready for this move, or is it still not a big deal?
And there is also rook E6.
Right, you also have this way of guarding. So everything still seems okay for
Yeah,
him.
so
yep,
Magnus took,
this is happening.
and then knight
Rook takes
F7.
G5 on the board and knight F7. Okay. So, you know, there's still tension in this game. Nothing
Yeah.
has been decided. I mean, but basically it seems equal. That's the point, right? Like now, you know, both sides, basically it's been good for Prague that the G pawn got traded for the F pawn. We should say that because, you know, he traded off a more centralized pawn. You know, now both sides have this isolated pawn. This knight is pretty good. I mean, white's rooks have always been quite good. So it's balanced.
It is, yeah.
Yeah.
So rook A6 is on the board, trying to prepare for this rook G1 idea. And now it's time for black letter to move around with the knight. But yeah, I like to put this bishop on D1 actually.
Yeah, how do we improve the black knights? Like, how do we improve this knight? It's not easy. Like, putting him there, I mean, he was just there, so it doesn't do anything. You can't, going there, trading for the white knight? What do you think? Or is there going to be too many problems on the D file to do that?
You might be able to do that, but yes, I think if you exchange the knight with the other knight, it will be better for black. So yeah, I think black can totally do that. Knight D6. If you
Knight
play rook
D6,
D1, just take.
D1, you
But there's
take.
bishop B3.
Yeah, and also like my rook just seems very
Yeah,
active.
bishop B3.
I don't know. I mean, that's the question for me. Is the big question is like what black is doing with these knights. They're not so bad, but like, you know, you want to try to make progress with them. The other big question for me, like, is this still an idea? Should we get rid of this knight so we can finally move this rook? Well, that's another big one. So right now, Prague is on the move. He's been thinking for over a minute.
Yeah.
He's
and-
under 2 minutes now.
Yeah, he's under 2 minutes. So this is already
Dangerous situation to be in against Carlsen, giving up that more than 1 minute advantage.
right. But also the position is not easy, so that's why.
It's a tricky position for both sides, absolutely.
So he
Rook
put Rook
D2.
D2.
Okay. So he gets off the G pawn and starts to target the knight. Very logical.
Rook F6.
F6. And Magnus, and it's amazing how fast he is, right? Like, how did he see this move so quickly? You know, okay, I mean, there's lots of things that you could do, but he just activates the rook and basically challenges, uses the tempo on this rook. That was instant. But I guess he was thinking. Yeah, he was thinking during Prague's time.
I mean,
Yeah.
also Rook D2 is kind of natural. You just want to keep attacking some of the pieces.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so, I mean, this game... Okay, make a prediction.
Make a prediction? I don't know. I'm going to predict a draw. That's a safe prediction.
Yeah.
But I mean, honestly, like when you get down to a minute, absolutely anything can happen. So I want our viewers to understand that the time situation that Prague is in is unpleasant. Magnus having 3 minutes against less than 1 minute. I mean, okay. I mean, Magnus can also win, but right now he's not winning on the board. But actually, maybe Magnus winning is not a bad prediction either, just because of the time situation.
Yeah, so, well, the position is still equal, but judging from the time situation, Magnus is in a very good favor.
Yeah, no, he seems to have transitioned to this blitz mode pretty easily, but right now his position is balanced. Does he really have much to work with here? Not really. I mean, white doesn't really have any big problems, right? I guess, we might want to put that pawn up to a5. White has control over the d file. You can't really move this knight. Can't really move this knight anywhere. So everything is under control in the position.
Yep.
So I mean, objectively, like a draw is the result that we're going to see. And Prague's 10-second increment should be enough for him to hold this, right?
Yeah,
Hold this balanced.
I think so too, yeah. It will be very hard to reroute these two knights because the knight on c4 is standing very strongly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's the B.
Should we just try b5? I mean, I'm thinking b5. Okay, Carlsen went here, but b5, maybe this was a problem. Then
Yeah, and then a5.
Yeah, and then you get to have a pass pawn. Okay. Carlsen went knight, king f8. Very kind of interesting move, trying to bring the king to protect these important squares on the d file. Yeah, that's a nice looking move. What's Prague going to do here?
Yeah, very solid and principled as well. You just want to bring your king in the end game.
It's quite smart. Yes. Okay, so maybe Prague will go knight b6, and then Magnus maybe is going to go for the trade, but
King g2.
King g2. Yeah. No, I don't know. I'm starting to feel like, when I see moves like king f8, king e7, I'm starting to see Magnus's concept here and how things could be a little bit unpleasant. But a5 is a good move.
a5 is a good move.
Yeah.
And I mean, so far, white has a better position on the queen side. So maybe, Prague is just using that fact. So rook h1, trying to tie down the king to its
the
position.
king here is excellent, right? These squares are guarded. Black has hopes of finally using these knights, finally, one day, right?
Yeah.
That can actually move. Okay, we can see that this is unpleasant. Prague is under 20 seconds.
Yeah. Prague has to play faster now.
I think Magnus has just transitioned way better to the fact that this is going down to blitz. Because you see how he just speeded up, right? And he continues to play fast, and he's just kind of, seizing the initiative here, right? Like right now, exactly. The knight came in. Now there's a fork threatened, and king
king has to
g1.
move again. Yes. Yeah. Well, I think it's because black has a clear idea on what to do in this position compared to white's. And yeah, we see it now. It's going to be very, very in the blitz mode.
Okay, Prague's rook is under attack. He has to move it away. He moved to d2, rook h3. Look how fast Magnus is playing his moves. He just doesn't even want to give him a chance to breathe, actually. That's what I mean. He could take a bit of time on these moves. I guess this one is fairly obvious. He wants to kind of use the third rank, maybe have ideas of rook c3. a6, what is that? Why is he doing that? Why did he just do that?
Did he just give up the pawn?
He did. He just gave up a pawn, and I'm not sure why. I have no idea why that move just happened. Okay, because he wants to get this pawn. But the thing is, there's, first of all,
there's rook c3.
There's rook c3. That's one idea. And also in this position, there's also ideas of even the knight coming in with all those fork threats. So I don't
No,
know.
this is too loose. I mean, like, it's not a position when you're sacrificing a pawn, actually.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Magnus went for knight g5 was stronger, but Magnus went for this. Knight a5, and now knight g5. Yep, played instantly. Now the knights are coming in. Look at those beautiful knights.
Wow.
Look at that attack coming in.
Right, and the king,
Yeah,
the king
time
is in the
situation.
meta net. Yeah.
He was merciless in this part. Did you feel that?
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
do you
yeah.
feel like how he just went on the attack and he started playing so confidently? He knew he had to use Prague's clock against him. All right. So now, what do we do? How do we? Well, black is still up a pawn. I mean, I don't know. This is obviously still a nice advantage for him, but maybe it's not the most. I mean, it's incisive. He might want to take a little bit of time here.
Yeah, I think he would like
this is still
to
a
keep
good,
the
very
rook on the
good
board.
move, right? Like this is still. I mean, chances to win, I guess, are pretty good here. I mean, he's just up a pawn. You'd think that he has like excellent chances to win this position. Yeah, but he went for something more incisive.
Yeah, I think he would like to keep the rook on the board.
Yeah, he
It's,
went for knight g to h3. Is he going on the attack? So we probably have to go here.
King f1, rook f3.
Yeah, are there checkmate threats like on the back rank? There kind of are, aren't there?
Yeah, yeah.
There's like rook,
rook
a3,
a3,
rook
yeah.
a3, and there's a checkmate threat with rook a4. And also, this is incredibly a back rank checkmate.
Yeah, it is.
It is because the king is completely limited by the
Wow.
knights. Oh man.
Wow, and Prague
was-
just doesn't have time to think about everything.
Yeah, that's checkmate on the back.
So-
Oh, that's a check. No, hold on. He took with a knight.
It's a check.
That,
King
yeah,
f6,
King f6.
and
Wow.
that's it. Wow, so Magnus won the first game, and in a completely equal position. And
But that was so good.
That was
so
very
good. You have to
instructive,
appreciate. You know, when
yeah.
you see this live, it's such a different experience from just watching, downloading the game afterwards and seeing the moves, right? Because you see, like it feels like it was easy, but it wasn't that easy. There were so
wasn't.
many
It
masterful
wasn't.
things that he had to do.